the outsider of if the outside of utensils become tummy through contact with tummy liquids. Rav Eliezer says they can convey tumor to liquids, but they cannot render foods unfit. Rav Yeshua says they can convey tumor to liquids, but they can render to foods unfit. Shimon, the brother of Azariah, says neither this nor that. Rather, liquids that have become tummy from the outside of the utensils can convey tumor to one, which can then can render another one unfit. Thus, this one says, that which conveys tumor to you cannot convey tumor to me, yet you can convey tumor to me. If there is a kneading trough that is on an incline and there's a dough on top and batter containing liquid that can moisten on the bottom, there are three pieces that equal an egg's volume do not combine, but two do combine. And Rav Yossi says even two doughs do not combine unless they press liquid. If the liquid was standing, even if each piece of dough was like the one of mustard seed, they combine. Rav Joseph says separated pieces of food do not combine. If a stick is covered with tummy liquids, once it makes contact with a mikvah, it is tahor. These are the words of Rabbi Yeshua. But they can come and say until it immerses it completely, a stream of liquid, a flow running down, a slope, a liquid sufficient to moisten that are not considered in connection for conveying tuma, not for reducing tahara. Liquid in a crevice is considered a connection for conveying tuma and for producing tahara. We said yesterday that if you walk by and you put the stick in the tummy stick into the mikvah, it becomes tahor.
Well,
right?
the stick is not tahor or tame because it's always tahor because the stick cannot become tame, but the water
Okay,
the water
right,
that's can become tahor.
if someone puts their finger into the mikvah walking by, not the whole body, but their finger, so their tummy, what is that? That doesn't cover
The mikveh is tahor. No matter what, the mikveh is tahor.
right. Okay.
So
So
if they touch the water that's on the stick, this is really what the question is. Is the water the stick got wet with tame water before?
right.
And then it fell in, but it was like very wet. It had a lot of water on it. Maybe there was even a like a little crevice in it that was
Right.
full with tame water. And then there's a connection between the water that's still on top of the stick and the water that's touching that's dripping down into the mikveh. And they're saying, so if somebody touched the water that's still on top of the stick, or something touched that, would that become tame? So the answer is yes, it would. It doesn't. I mean, it was a machlokes inside here actually, because Rabbi Yeshua says as soon as any part of the water that's connected to it touches the mikveh, then all the water electrically become the tahara comes electrically up through the water and is matahar everything else on the stick. But Chachamim,
Okay.
it's got to be submerged.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Test olive.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're talking about here is we learned before in Machshirin that that in order for a foodstuff to become susceptible to tumah, it has to become moistened with one of the liquids. Okay, we've listed all those 7 liquids many times before. One of those liquids is olive oil.
Right.
Now, when the olives are plucked off the tree, they are tahor. It doesn't matter what happens to them. They could be in an oil hameis. They could have a zav sitting on them. It doesn't matter. They're not susceptible to tumah. Okay, so now they're gathered in a basket. But what happens is during the manufacture, they're taken to the olive press, and while they're sitting in the olive press, they start to decay a little and they start becoming moist, and that moisture over there is considered oil. But one of the laws that we have of machshirin is bechiyutan, right? If water is placed, and that has to be lirtzono. It has to be to the owner's satisfaction that the food is becoming moist. So even if it's oozing oil, but the owner's not happy about it, then that isn't machshirit. Okay, so that's what we're talking about in our Mishnahs today. So when do they start to be makabel tumah from the oil that oozes out of them? So when they start to ooze the oil that's inside the vat, but not if they're inside the reaping basket. Right? So when you just put them into the basket and they became wet inside the basket from each other, that's not considered machshir. K'divrei Beis Shammai. Such is the opinion of Beis Shammai. Rabbi Shimon Omer Shiur Zeya Shlosha Yamim. So he says it takes 3 days. And this is saying even according to the opinion of Beit Shammai, by the way. Rabbi Shimon says that this shear of zayah is it's 3 days until it can actually have a liquid that's usable, and that would make it be susceptible to tumah. Beis Hillel omrim mi sheyischabru shlosha ze lazeh. This is at the point that 3 olives would stick to each other, and you'd pick up one, and the other 2 would come with it. That's when the liquid is considered a machshir, and it's something that the owner wants, because now this is, the oil is dripping out, and he wants this oil. Only after the work has been done, in other words, after all the oil has been pressed out, that's when it's olive oil, says Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And the paskin halacha like Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that it's only after the olives have been pressed that they can become susceptible to tumah. Okay, so Mishna Base now continues along that line of just Rabban Gamliel, where we've taken that's the halacha. Gamar milim sok aval asid likach. So he's finished smacking the olives off the top of the tree. You know how they do it? They put the blanket under the tree and they start smacking all the branches to drop all the olives onto the blanket. And
I didn't know that's how they do it.
Yeah, that is how they do it. They put actually, I saw this amazing video. They still do something like this today. I saw this as a video of how they farm cherries. Also, they put down this big top. It's got a little slit down the sides that you can slip, so you can slide it around the trunk of the tree. And so they this huge top all around the tree, and this machine comes out with an arm and grabs the trunk of the tree and starts shaking it vigorously. The machine is vibrating so hard that all of the cherries just fall off the tree onto the top. And then then they take the top and pull it onto a machine that with a conveyor belt.
I never picked it. I always picked the cherries with the stem on it. Some guys walking around picking, pulling it off.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, here are the olives, which is so they finished. So they finished shaking the olives off the tree, but they still want to bring more olives into the vat. Or gamar milikach aval asid lilvos. Or they finished taking the olives. They finished taking olives. They don't want to put any more olives into the vat, but they still want to borrow. Okay, so he's finished purchasing more olives now, but he might want to borrow more olives to put into his vat from somebody else. Ero or Abel, and now something happened that delayed him. Or Avil, he became an Avel or Mishte, or suddenly he had to deal with a wedding, and or Ones, or some other kind of mishap that prevented him from finishing his vat. Afilu zavim v'zavos mehalchin aleihin tohorin. So even if you have the highest levels of tumah coming around, these olives that are still in the vat waiting for more olives to join them, that itself, even though they're all wet and dripping from their own moisture, they're still not mukshar tumah, and they will not become tameh. Naflu aleihin mashkin tamein. What happens if a tameh liquid fell on top of them? Okay, so now there's no question about the liquid itself being a machshir. It's just a question of did the but presumably though, did the owner want them? That's actually an interesting question. Did the owner want it to become wet? Is that essentially not good? Wait, tameh mashkin tamein. Wait, where am I? Naflu aleihem mashkin tamein. Okay. Ein tamei ela makom maga'an. The only place that becomes tamei is where the tamei liquid's actually touched. Okay.
The tamei liquid falls on top.
It doesn't spread now. It doesn't spread now through all of the olive oil that's connecting all the rest of the olives. Just the place where the tamei liquid fell, that those olives then become tamei. Okay. If you can't find them, that's a different problem.
Mhm.
And you can go into the rules of Tuma and Tara when there's a miut and when you're not sure which one became Tameh, etc. However, ein Tameh ela makom magan v'mochal hayotze mehen tahor. And even from that Tameh olive, if you see oil dripping out of that Tameh, the olive that became Tameh, it is still
Oh,
tahor. Yeah.
I don't, it's not, seems unusual, but if the oil, it dripped on a certain spot, it became tummy, you would think that the inside, but also then, you know,
Right, but
so,
it's not considered. So what happens is because it's not it hasn't been pressed, that's not even considered oil. So
okay.
that's the lumdus of it. Okay, because again we were following the halacha that Rabban Gamliel said that it only becomes susceptible to tumah once the malacha is completed, which it is in
Right.
this case. Nigmar malachtan. Okay, now we've reached the point where the olives have all been pressed. Hare elu mukhsharin. Every single olive in that press is now mukhshar l'tumah. Naflu aleihin mashkin tamein. So if any liquid fell on top of them, then yeah, they will all become tameh. So even if it falls on one side, that will hit the first olive that it touches, it becomes tameh, and then it is connected to its neighbor by all of the olive juice that's connecting everything else in the vat. So it's just going to go like electricity throughout the whole vat. Every single olive inside there is going to become tameh. Now, what happens if subsequently more juice drips out of these olives? Rabbi Eliezer metaher, the Chachamim metamin. Okay, so why does Rabbi Eliezer metaher? He holds that the mochel is not considered a liquid. He says that it's not considered oil. It's only considered oil when it's been squeezed out for oil, but otherwise it's not considered one of our liquids. Chachamim do consider it oil. Amar Rabbi Shimon lo nechlaku ala mochel hayotze min hazesim. No. He says you've got the whole machlokes wrong. They agreed about the mochel that came out of the olives, that it's tahor. In other words, he's saying that the Chachamim agreed that oil that comes out is not even considered oil. Well, what's the machlokes really about? Ala yotze min abor. It's the liquid that comes out of that's left after the pit. So after you remove all the oil from the pits in the oil press, and you've taken out all of the olives, and now there's some liquid left behind over there. So now that's the liquid that there's a machlokes about now in between Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says is tahor, and Chachamim say is tameh. Okay, and the halacha follows the Chachamim according to the Tanakama's parish.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back.
Okay. Hey, above hey. If one enters an area of open fields during the rainy season and there's tumah in the certain field, and he said, I went to that area, but I do not whether I entered that field or not. Reb Elazar spurs him tahor, but it's common room tameh. An uncertainty of tumah in the private domain is named tameh until he says, I did not touch that tameh object. And an uncertainty of tumah is in the public domain is named tahor until he says, I touched the tameh object. What is public domain? The paths of Beit Gilgal and other paths similar to them are private domain in regard to the laws of Shabbos, but a public domain in regard to the laws of tumah. Rabbi Eliezer says the paths of Ben Gilgal were not mentioned in the academy other than to teach that they were a private domain for this Sabbath laws and for that the tumah laws. The paths that open into pit ditches and vaults and wine vats are a private domain for the laws of Shabbos, but a public domain for the laws of tumah. An area of open fields during the summer season is a private domain in regard to the laws of Shabbos and a public domain in regard to the laws of tumah, whereas during the rainy season it is a private domain with regard to both this and to that.
Okay. Para.
And okay. Ches. All the seas are like a mikveh, and it is said, a gathering mikveh of waters he called seas. These are the words of Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says only the great sea is like a mikveh. It says seas only because it contains many kinds of seas. Where Yossi says all the seas can purify while flowing, but they are unfit for zavim and for mitzarim and for consecrating, therefore purification water. Smitten waters are invalid. These are considered to be smitten waters. Waters that are salty or lukewarm. Waters that cease to flow are valid. Waters that cease to flow are invalid, and these are waters that cease if they cease once in 7 years. Waters at sea during military campaigns and in years of drought are valid. Rabbi Yehuda disqualifies. The waters of the Carminian River and the waters of the Puga River are disqualified because they are washed waters. The waters of the Jordan and the waters of the Yarmuk River are invalid because they are mingled waters. And these are mingled waters. These are mingled waters. One valid water source and one invalid water source that became tamei intermixed. However, two valid water sources that became mixed are valid, and Rabbi Yehuda disqualifies them.
Okay.
And
Tohoros.
Olios.
Hey.
Hey, love, hey. There is tumah between the joists and underneath, and it is a very thin covering. If there is a handbreadth of empty space, everything becomes tamei. If there is no handbreadth of empty space, the tumah is considered occluded. If the tumah is noticeable within the lower story becomes tamei, whether or not there is a cube handbreadth of empty space. A wall that resulted from excavation is ruled as a garlic peel. And how so? There is a wall between two recesses or between two underground chambers. If tumah in the open areas of the catacomb and there's the utensils in the wall that are covered very thinly, the utensils remain tahor. If tumah is in the wall covered very thinly and in the open areas there's utensils, the utensils remain tahor. If tumah is underneath a pillar, tumah penetrates upward and downward. Utensils that are beneath the capital remain tahor, and Ben Yochanan and Ben Nuri declares them tamei. In a case where the tumah and the utensils are beneath the capital, if there is a space of a handbreadth, the utensils are tamei. If not, they remain tahor. Two wall closets that are one beside the other or one above the other, one of the closets is open, it becomes tamei, and so does the house, while the other closet remains tahor. However, if the door is closed, the wall closets are treated as if there is no empty space inside them at all, and they are ruled half and half to make the house tamei. Okay. Here, and we are into Menachos. Okay, Yud Aleph Aleph. The shtei lechem are kneaded one by one and baked one by one. The lechem upon them are kneaded one by one, but are baked two by two. One would make them in a mold, and when they remove them, you place them in a mold so that they should not be damaged. Both the shtei lechem and the lechem upon them are kneaded and shaped outside the temple courtyard and are baked within it, and they do not override Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says all the procedures are performed within the courtyard. Rabbi Shimon says always be accustomed to say that the shtei lechem and the lechem upon them are valid both in the courtyard and in Beis Pagi. Like Avitim and the Kohen Gadol are kneaded, shaped, and baked within the courtyard, and they override Shabbos. The grinding and sifting do not override Shabbos. The Rebbe Kiva say the rule: any labor that can be done prior to Shabbos should not override Shabbos, whereas one which cannot be done prior to Shabbos should override Shabbos. All milk offerings processed in a vessel and prepared. That's it. Okay. And Nazir. Okay, base. If he said, the cow said, I am a Nazir, if I stand up, or the door said, I am a Nazir, if I open, Beit Shammai say he is a Nazir. But Beit Hillel says he is not a Nazir. Rabbi Yehuda said, even what Beit Shammai said, they did not say, except for one who says, this cow is for me a sacrifice if it stands up. If they poured a cup for him and he said, I am a Nazir from it, and he is a Nazir. It once happened with a certain woman who was inebriated, and they poured a cup for her, and she said, I am a Nazir from it. The comment said she did not intend other than to say, it is for me like a sacrifice. If one says I'm a Nazir on condition that I be prohibited to drink wine or contract tumor from the dead, he is a Nazir, and prohibited in all of them. If he says, I know that there is a Naziris, but I did not know that a Nazir is forbidden wine, he is forbidden. Rabbi Shimon permits him. I know that a Nazir is forbidden wine, but I thought that the sages would permit it for me since I cannot live without wine, or since I bury the dead, he is permitted, but Shimon forbids him.
Yeah.
And finish up Masa Sheni today. Okay. And Akala. What did I say? I said Masa Sheni.
It's right. It's Chala.
And the following may be given to any priest: devoted things, the firstborn, the redemption price of a son, the ransom of the first of a donkey, the shoulder, the two cheeks, and the maw, the first of the fleece, the oil which must be burnt, the holy things in the temple, and first fruits. Rabbi Yehuda forbids the first fruits. Vetches of Truma, Rabbi Kiva permits, but the sages forbid. Natai of Tekoa brought challah from Beitar, but they did not accept from them. The men of Alexandria brought their challah from Alexandria, but they did not accept from them. The men of Har Sezivam brought their Bikurim before Shavuos, but they did not accept from them because of what is written in the Torah, and the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you now sow in the field. Antinios brought up his first firstling from Babylon, and they did not accept it from them. Yosef the priest brought Bakirim of wine and oil, and they did not accept from them from him. He also took up his sons and members of the household to make them mine of Pesach in Yerushalayim, and they turned him back, lest it establish itself as obligatory. Ariston brought his Bakirim from Apamiah, and they accepted that from him because they said one who buys in Syria is one who buys in a suburb of Yerushalayim.
Okay.
Tomorrow we have Ola.
Orla, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.